Hello, folks. This is your ticker guy with a late update for today. That would be the 4th of Rocktober. Oh boy, where do I start? All right. Let's talk about the employment report real quick. A lot of people cheering about it. There's really nothing special there. It's right up the middle from a standpoint of a normal September. So if you look in the household numbers, which is what I use, I don't use the establishment survey at all. In the household numbers, you will see that it is approximately equal to what we had last September. It's in the 600s. And that's not a bad number. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of people that are going to be screaming that this is some wonderful thing, yada, 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 yada. No, it really isn't. And as far as why are we getting the downward revision from a standpoint of the unemployment rate going down, it's because we keep adding to people and not in labor force number. All right, so if you're wondering why that's happening, that's the reason it's happening. It is what it is. We got a 2 tick up in the employment participation ratio. That's actually good. In terms of the 12-month rate of change X population, which is an extremely important number because it tells you whether or not we're gaining or losing compared to the working age population. We on the 12-month rolling basis, we stand at plus 939. That's in hundreds of thousands. So we're just under 1 million. That is the interesting thing about it is last month we went from essentially flat to plus 911. So we didn't really gain anything this month. And in terms of the population corrected ratio, that's the one that matters. So if you're looking at this report and say, well, we're right where we need to be, not really so much. We're not adding anything to it. And there was probably some commentary this morning. I didn't catch it. Right when it came out, it was basically, well, it's just enough to keep us even with it. And yes, on a 12-month rolling basis, that's not a false statement. That's actually the truth. If you heard that on CNBS this morning, you actually heard the truth for a change out of them, which is a shock. Okay. One of the places that I have really been hammering on is the educational attainment and where the jobs are coming from in that regard. And we're seeing the same thing happening here. The participation rate, employment population ratio for people with less than a high school degree, there was a glitch last month, and then on an upward basis last month, and then we came back down this month in some of these numbers. So there were some changes here, and there's this. I think we need to look at a 2-month number on this, or an annualized number. It's kind of tough to call on this, but here is September 2018 to September 2019, just to put this in perspective for you. Less than high school diploma, we've gone from 44.2 to 44.5. We were at 45.0% last month. So there was a loss there in September, but there was a 3-tick gain for those people on an annualized basis. High school graduates went from 55.6 to 56.5. Now, that's a big move. That's a 9-tick move, 0.9%. This month, however, they were at 56.0 last year at this time, so they've gained half a point. And again, that's, you had 0.3 point on less than a high school diploma. You had a 0.5 point, half a point, on the high school graduates. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Some college or associate degree, 63.0 last month to 63.1 this month, and it's exactly the same as it was last year. So there's been no gain there whatsoever. And then we had a large gain in bachelor's degree holders this month. In fact, it was up a full percent. However, it's only 3 ticks on an annualized basis. So again, there was a big loss on a comparative basis last month, and that all got picked back up. What does this mean? Well, it means that the people who are going in and trying to get jobs, now is the absolute number better the more education you have? Absolutely. However, this doesn't say anything about whether or not you're using all of the skills that you paid to acquire. That's a different question, and it's a lot more complicated. I think you need to be a little cautious, and this goes to what I've said before. The educational environment is pricing itself out of the market, and nowhere is it more evident than in these employment tables. All right, this is a huge problem, And folks, if you think that we can run a country when you've got roughly half of the people that are high school graduates and less who cannot find jobs, they don't have jobs, but they are of working age people, you're out of your mind. All right, you're just flat out of your mind. You cannot have 50% of the people without college educations that cannot find work and have a stable economy. That's just all there is to it. And yet this has been going on for a long time. I've been yelling about it for a long time. And it doesn't appear that we're going to see any kind of immediate change because this is at its core mostly a political issue. So that's a problem. Okay, now let's go back to the impeachment thing for a minute, because there's some interesting stuff floating around right now that I'm trying to run down, and it's extraordinarily convoluted. So I'm giving you a heads up on it here. It has to do with Nancy Pelosi and her son. Her son is no stranger to controversy when it comes to various security-related things. Okay? The Washington Times had a story up about a company called National Blue that was charged with securities fraud. Now, this was in 2014. This was a while ago. And this is sort of an interesting situation here. You had this was a public firm. Stock was suspended. It appears that two people who had formerly been convicted were actually running the place, which, by the way, is illegal. They tried to basically end run around the rules to prevent that kind of thing from happening. And this here is sort of interesting because Natural Blue. Now there is another company out there called NRG Lab. All right. Now this one apparently has some dealings with the Ukraine, and Paul Pelosi apparently is involved in this as well. Now wait a minute. What's going on here, folks? Is this whole thing about Trump going after the Biden situation and the natural gas company over there is the real bottom line? That if somebody starts digging into this NRG Lab place that apparently did business in Ukraine, that they might find something hinky there. And by the way, since her son was apparently involved in this other organization that had its stock suspended because there were people who weren't allowed to run public companies that were involved in doing just that, and they had tried to conceal it and got caught. That's been reported. That suspension is real. That happened. It was a number of years ago, but nonetheless, okay. Can somebody, why is there this consistency between like energy companies and foreign involvements and people who aren't supposed to be doing things, and Nancy, and then she gets all bent out of shape about Hunter Biden and the president going after this situation over in the Ukraine? Why do I think there might be some smoke here? I don't know. I need to look at this. The promotional materials for this NRG Lab new technology company and this other one called Viscoil Group. And I'm not sure exactly, and again, I'm not sure exactly how all this ties together, folks. I'm still digging into this, but I thought it was important enough to put a heads up here on this. And again, I can't nail at this point that Nancy's son is involved in this, but boy, the coincidences here are just starting to stack. So we're going to be looking at this. I'm going to be doing a lot of digging into here, and it may take a little while to figure out what this is all about. And it looks to me like this is these polycrystalline technology stuff. There was a big rage about this a number of years ago, and nobody's actually made anything out of it so far, as far as I know. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, because there are also apparently ties to Russia in here, in that one of the companies in question is listed as suspended by the state regulators where it was registered. Now, that's not uncommon. If you don't file annual reports, they'll do that on an automated basis. But there's a report here in National File that says that there's an individual based out of Moscow that's one of the people that's the managers. So, again, suspension, especially if it's an LLC, limited liability company, not uncommon if you fail to file the required reports. That by itself doesn't indicate anything other than that you just stopped working on it, and instead of filing a dissolution, you just ignored it. And then the Secretary of State does that. But as I said, there's strings sticking out of the ball here. This looks like a ball of yarn, and I'm going to have to pull on it and see what comes out. You guys have a good one. And by the way, Trump has said apparently that he's going to fight these document production and subpoena requests. Good for him. I think it's very interesting that Pelosi thinks she doesn't need to take a vote. Now, of course, I understand why she doesn't want to take a vote. She's got the crazy caucus. She could probably get the vote to pass, but now she's got a problem on the other side. So, there's all kinds of moving parts here. But I just thought that it would be interesting to point out that there may be a little personal interest here, specifically with regards to Ukraine, because the note here says that this company did business in the Ukraine. All right, so if Trump poked the prosecutors and the prosecutors reopened the old files and went back through things and started looking at all of the energy dealings that were done over in the Ukraine, they'd probably look at this too. And I think that's very interesting. I'm your ticker guy. You have yourself a good day.